my name's Random Tuesday, and in this video I'm going to talk you through my Cardcaptor Sakura cosplay. The base layer of this cosplay is the leotard. Now, I struggled to find the exact shade of blue that I wanted to use, so I ended up purchasing a unitard from the internet, and then I adjusted it to be what I wanted. So I marked where I wanted that leotard to fit and how high up I wanted the leg sections to go. I then cut out that excess material while leaving a little bit of a seam allowance, and then replaced that material using stuff called power mesh, or sometimes flush mesh, which is very hard to say, and also typically a stretch mesh that comes in flesh tone variety colors. And that gives you the appearance of it being skin and an open space while still giving you the tension that I needed to keep the butt portion down and the thigh portion up so that I wasn't constantly lifting things up, and I also didn't end up with a massive wedgie. Over the top of that, we have our overvest, which I based off of my frequently used princess seam bodice tutorial pattern. All of it was made out of a matte white satin. I did line it because white satin tends to be a little bit see-through, and with a dark colored leotard, I wanted to get a really crisp white color to it. I then finished all of the edges in gold bias tape and have a separating zipper and a couple of little hooks and eyes at the top and bottom to keep it closed in the front, and a little bit of an overlap on that front section in order to prevent the zipper from being seen. The next section is the cape. And the cape is based off pretty much just a big ol' trapezoid, so a square. I angled the sides and then wrap it around my shoulders and added a couple of darts at the shoulder in order to get it to sit nice and flat. This allows it to be a cape so it doesn't hang forward, keeps everything open, but still has some nice and dramatic flow. I used one of my favorite materials, which is a peach skin satin. It's a matte satin, but it has a really lovely drape to it, so you get this very wispy, airy sort of look. Now, the weirdest part about this cape is naturally, like any good cape, it has two collars. Seriously, Tomoyo? Both of the collars were made of a fold over of fabric with interfacing to keep them standing up. And then at the sides, they also have a little pleat in order to kind of poof them out so they don't fall inwards as they would be wanted to do. Over the top of that, I have a very large bow, which is constructed in a similar fashion to most very large anime bows, which is that it is not an actual bow, but it's several pieces assembled together to look like a bow. And I have a pattern for this over on my website, as well as a lot of other links to people who've made tutorials and patterns for making ridiculous anime bows. Now on the top on my head, I am wearing a wig, which I purchased as is. I trimmed the bangs, and then I also made those little antennae stick out a little bit more with the glue, but otherwise it pretty much worked the way it was. And then I have her beret hat, which are basically two big circles with a hole in the middle, so it goes around my head, and an elastic band around it in order to keep the hat on, as well as a couple of combs and clips in the back to keep it all nice, secure, and snug to the wig. The back of it has two long tails, which are made out of blue satin, closely matching the leotard as I possibly could find, and those also have some interfacing in them to keep them nice and firm. At the end of them, they are assembled together. The bottom structure is basically sandwiched around the fabric, a couple of layers of shaped EVA foam, and then covered with a gold lame vinyl over the top to make it nice and shiny. And the gold circles are just buttons that I glued directly onto the fabric. For the shoes, I found a pair of white high tops, and then I just added the red detailing, some of it using a leather paint, a red leather paint, and some of it using sections of EVA foam wrapped in the fabric and then glued or looped around portions of the shoe. The ones I found had the gold on them, which fit with the overall aesthetic of the cosplay, but isn't part of the official design. I still like how it turned out, though. The gloves are a pretty traditional cosplay glove pattern. It's basically a trace of your hand, two pieces of fabric sandwiched and stitched together. And then the cuffs were made out of a loop of EVA foam with a little bit of felt wrapped around it to make it a little bit smoother and bulkier, and then just wrapped in the stretched spandex and hand stitched onto the glove portion because it's all very tight and fiddly. The card was made by the wonderful Steph MHC. She hand drew it all based on reference images and then colored it using various watercolor paints, sandwiched the two sides together, and then we laminated it to keep it nice and safe. You can check out more information on how that happened over on her Patreon. And lastly, but obviously not leastly when it comes to Sakura's cosplay, was her staff. I have more information on how I constructed this staff over on my website, but the head of it was essentially sculpted and then cast, and the wings are made out of layered EVA foam wrapped in Worbla, and all of this is then attached to a PVC pipe. And the tail end, the strawberry end, has EVA foam covered in Worbla again attached to it, and the gems were made out of resin casting. So there's more information on how I assembled it and constructed it all together, as well as links to other people's tutorials over on my website, randomtuesday.com. Thank you so much for watching my Cardcaptor Sakura cosplay directional tutorial video. I hope you found it helpful. As always, head over to my website, randomtuesday.com, for a link to the pattern to this costume, a bunch of other resources for this and many other cosplays. You can check me out live, where I'm always happy to answer questions, over on twitch.tv/randomtuesday. And you can follow me on various social medias for more updates and information on these and many other costumes. And lastly, and never leastly, thank you to each and every one of my patrons over on Patreon who made this video and this cosplay a reality. If you would like to help support me in creating more cosplays, tutorials, and resources, please consider a small monthly amount over on Patreon. Thank you so much for watching.